Right. Welcome to today's SitRep for 27th of February 2022. It is currently 11 minutes past 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on a Sunday morning. And I hope that you're all well on this Sunday morning. Doing Sunday morning stuff, I don't know, playing with your kids or mowing lawns or probably not pouring through news channels and different sources and things like that. Because it's still what it is out there. So let's kick into it. Actually, no, sorry. Before we kick into it, I didn't do a sit rep yesterday because I was up a little bit north, a couple of hours north. So a friend and I went up north to some other friends, some new friends, to their farm, and helped them kill and butcher some of their goats. So that's what I was doing yesterday, which was awesome. I mean, it's good to do that sort of stuff. I did film a bunch of that sort of thing, so I will be putting together a video on kind of like skinning and butchering, or basic, very, very basic. It's not like I'm a professional butcher or anything. I just hack away at it. As you know, I butcher it, as the term goes. But I'll try and get that video edited soon and get that up as well. I'll put a post up there to see who is interested, and overwhelmingly people were very interested. Which I wasn't sure if people would be interested in seeing a video on how to skin and butcher a goat, but apparently people are. So I will get that done and put that up on the YouTubes. So again, I'm going live on Instagram and live on YouTube today. I'm going to probably change the format of how I'm doing this on YouTube in the future. But as of right now, I'm still doing it off my laptop camera, which is not the best quality, but is what it is. Okay, so that's what I've been up to yesterday, which was good, taking a little bit of a break, a breather from the torrent of information. A lot of stuff obviously going on still in the world. As it stands, have things changed in a bigger sense? Not a whole heap, but there's a few key points that I want to bring up today. So I'm actually going to start with China. There's a few things coming out of China. Probably one of the big ones that a lot of people may have seen already, that China has announced that they're doing an exercise in the South China Sea. So they're doing that from Sunday to Tuesday, which is today, for the next 3 days. Maybe it means nothing, maybe it means something, but it's they're going to be moving a lot of naval assets and other sort of troops around in that space there. So something to keep an eye on there. On the other side of house with China, they did actually release some information. There's a little bit of pressure being put on them to also weigh in on this whole Russia-Ukraine thing, and they have said that it is kind of up to them what goes on. It's their territory. It's not really that much to do with us. However, they have said that they may restrict some trade with Russia. So they've kind of signaled that. Whether they will or not, remains to be seen. There's a lot of world leaders and countries that are coming out saying a lot of things, and then what they do is something totally different, i.e. Russia. Maybe what we're seeing is China still stalling for time and kind of like just appeasing and saying what the rest of the world, or what the West at least, wants to hear, and and go, okay, here's what you want to hear. Yeah, we're going to do some restrictions on Russia too, and then they'll go about doing whatever they're going to do. Because there has been some other information that's come out about joint military exercises that are going to be occurring, in specific naval exercises that are going to be occurring. Sorry, the dogs are going crazy in the background there. Shut this door. Joint military exercises that are happening between Iran, China, and Russia coming up soon. See what happens there. So they've still obviously got that connection there between those sort of countries, and it seems like those countries seem to be forming a greater alliance. And I've kind of said this before, and my little acronym for it is the RINC, or now maybe even the PRINC, being Pakistan, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China. You can kind of see some loose alliance starting to maybe form there around those 5 countries, and mainly based on the kind of anti-Western sentiment. I think some of them are a lot stronger than others, and some of those within there actually have maybe a little bit of beef with each other. So in actuality, I think the links between Russia and China are actually a lot looser than maybe the mainstream media is putting out there, that they might at some stage have more to fight against each other over than actually with each other. Big land border there. So that's just something to sort of think about in the back of your mind. So that's China. Like, obviously keep your eyes on the southern South China Sea and what happens there with that exercise. But I still think they're gearing up towards Taiwan. They're still eyeballing that, and they're still putting out the same sort of rhetoric that it is part of China and it just needs reunification into China. So disturbing signs, because if that does happen, obviously we're kicking off something. Whenever I'm sort of looking at this stuff, I feel like there's like a meter or a clock that's kind of getting close to that kickoff point where it's like, this is the point of no return of World War III. And yeah, I feel like we're kind of like ticking every day. I'm reading more news, and we're kind of getting closer to that point where we could hit that tipping point. Okay, so in the Ukraine, Ukrainians are holding out by all accounts. Well, not by all accounts, by a lot of accounts. There's still conflicting information, and I do try and like read some of the Russian sources as well, so I can see what they're putting out there. Because there is a lot of misinformation that's actually coming out. And I say this every time as a bit of a caveat. It's very hard to tell exactly what's happening there. There is this thing called the fog of war, and information always gets disrupted whenever these sort of things are happening. So unless you're on the ground there actually eyeballing it, then take everything with a grain of salt and try and weigh up all information through the source that it came from. But it does seem like, at least the Ukrainians are holding out. It does seem like the Russian plan isn't going according to or at least not as easily as they thought it would. So they are, by most indicators, taking more areas, taking more cities, and destroying more military targets. But it doesn't seem to be happening as fast as maybe they would have expected, and definitely as fast as I would have expected, seeing that on most major military counts, they're probably about 3 to 5 times the size of Ukraine, and sometimes in some accounts much larger. But yeah, so that doesn't look like it might be going as swiftly for Russia as they thought it would be. Russia doesn't seem to be backpedaling due to any sort of the sanctions, though. At this point, the sanctions don't seem to have hit the way that we would have thought they would. But what I see happening with the sanctions is that these sanctions are going to happen. Like, they are happening now, and they're going to continue to happen. I couldn't see countries just releasing sanctions for months, years, maybe even a decade or so into the future. And I think Russia's starting to look at that and realize that, and it's kind of becoming that point where they're going, well, it doesn't really matter actually now. If we say, yep, sorry, our bad, and we pull back from Ukraine, they're still going to get smacked with these sanctions to some extent. If they continue pushing forward for whatever their goal is, then they're going to get smacked with these sanctions. So it's kind of like damned if they do, damned if they don't. So I can see Russia maybe starting to feel like they're going, well, what's the point? I'm just going to do this anyway now. But I don't know. I'm not there in Russia. I don't know what's going on. It is starting to have huge economic effects by all accounts within their country, and that's starting to flow out into the world, and that's what we're going to see. So again, this information that I'm putting out, I'm always trying to tie it back to how this is going to affect us as average Joes sitting around primarily in Australia. I know there are other people who watch my stuff from other countries, like especially YouTube. I think a lot of Americans appear to be watching what I'm doing. Maybe they just like the information, but in a different accent. That's cool. But for Australians, I think we're going to start to feel the effects economically ourselves as well. Sanctions are a bit of a double-edged sword in that way. And I'll touch on finance stuff in a second, but it is the weekend, so there's not a lot of financial news coming out. Putin has apparently thrown around the N word, the big nuke, not the other N word, but the nuke word, which, again, this is another indicator where that little counter. I should get like a groovy little graphic made up of Stu's like doomsday counter. But yeah, when rhetoric like that starts coming out, this is a little bit disturbing to me. I still don't see it as a high possibility or high probability, sorry. But it is a possibility. Like, that's always potentially there, and it always has been, really. But a lot of us don't think about it. Ever since we came out of the 80s, we stopped thinking about nukes a lot more. So he is kind of threatening that, and I think if things start going poorly there, then who knows? There are smaller nukes, tactical nukes that could be getting used, that could be more likely to be used. I'll put it that way. But once that genie's out of the bottle, then that's going to obviously start something much, much worse, which is a path we don't want to go down. Anonymous, the I don't know what you call it, group, hacktivist group, have come out and said that they are going to start attacking Russian sites. So Anonymous, quite infamous for their past attacks. They're going to start a concerted effort, apparently, against Russia or Russian sites. So we'll see what happens there with that. But again, the cyber side of house, I've said this a few times now. This is one of the main concerns, I think, for the rest of the world, because the blowback there could be quite huge. And if things start getting out of control, if we go into like the equivalent of a cyber nuclear war, the end effect is pretty much the same, except things aren't irradiated; things are just gone. We live in a society now that is, in my opinion at least, far too reliant on that sort of digital side of house, and far too vulnerable to attack. So this could take out a lot of things. This could take out all sorts of infrastructure, and we've seen it happen before. This is what happened with the fuel pipeline thing in the US, and that was just one party working against one company, essentially. So imagine a concerted effort of a rogue state working against multiple areas of infrastructure and government and private companies as well. So we could see a massive fallout from this. Intercian has just said Klaus Schwab warned of cyber attacks a while back too. Yeah. I mean, cyber attacks has always been one of these things that's disturbed me for a little bit. And I think now more than ever, like, the risk of significant fallout from cyber attacks is now more realistic than it ever has been. So, and that can affect us. Like I keep saying, it's not geographically linked. It's not like they have to launch a missile anywhere. It can be a kid sitting in a basement in like Siberia, could potentially cripple us here in Australia. So be warned. I'm not saying this to like freak anyone totally out, like, quick, get off the grid or whatever, but start making moves towards that. Yeah, you don't want to. If you find that you're very, very reliant on things like the internet for everything that you do, maybe start to diversify where your actual reliance sits. Refugee crisis. I'll just touch on this quickly as well. So Serbia and Poland are reporting a huge amount of refugees, obviously coming out of the Ukraine, pouring into their countries, which is understandable. And this is like just to kind of go a bit high level on this again, or broader sense on this again. Prepping, what we're talking about with prepping is being prepared for something that could go wrong. Realistically, as a prepper, you should be thinking about, well, what if something happens in my area? Should I stay in my place? Should I bug out? Do I have the ability to do that? This is maybe the thought process that should have been going on with Ukrainians a couple of weeks ago, and looking at getting out of their country like then, or at least a week ago. But what we saw was it took up until that point where Russians actually invaded their country for most people in the major cities to go, oh, hang on, this is serious and I need to get out now. And then bang, you're in traffic jams. No one's going anywhere. You're locked down in some areas, so you can't move. And then when people do move, they're hitting other countries en masse. And so now these other countries have to do something about that. So possibly, we might start seeing things like refugee camps set up in these bordering countries. I don't know how much people know about refugee camps. I went and spent a little bit of time in refugee camps in Syria in 2020. And I came away from those ones in particular thinking, this is somewhere where I do not want anyone to be. I don't even really like, a lot of these people were ex-ISIS. And I was thinking, like, I wouldn't really wish this upon, even kind of evil people or my enemies or anything like that. They are absolutely horrific places to be. They are hotbeds of all sorts of depravity of the human imagination there. Really, really bad things. I can't describe this enough. Refugee camps are a bad, bad place to be. So, I'll do anything to avoid being in a refugee camp. If it came down to that, if for some reason, in Australia, we had some emergency and all of a sudden we had to shift and I don't know, I got across the border where it was safe and was put into a refugee camp, I'd be doing anything to get out of that or not go into it in the first place. So I think, the amount that's being reported of refugees that are pouring across the borders there, this is what we could start seeing. And that's a real humanitarian crisis then that we've got on our hands. It's already a humanitarian crisis within Ukraine, but it's going to spread out to other areas. I will circle back, actually, an interesting point that came up that's been reported in a couple of different sources here about cyber attacks is rumblings or rhetoric that's starting to go out saying that cyber attacks against NATO countries will activate Article 5. So anyone who's been listening along with me for a little bit, Article 4 was getting talked about being activated within NATO, which is essentially these articles are talking about, or how NATO works is it is basically if one country in NATO gets attacked, it is exactly the same as all countries being attacked. So if, say, Lithuania gets attacked, then every single country within the NATO alliance acts as if their own country got attacked. So the US would act as if Russia had then invaded New York City. And that's the same article that got instigated in the 9/11 attack. So the 9/11 attack happened and the US said to NATO, look, we just got attacked. So it means you all have been attacked. So let's all go to Afghanistan and do this. And that's essentially how that whole thing got kicked off. So in Afghanistan, and I spent a long time in Afghanistan. And sometimes it's like, why do we have, Cyprians here? Why do we have Italians here? Why do we have, all these Eastern European countries and, or maybe, France and Germany, that makes sense. But all these countries were there and involved. But we were all there under that NATO alliance. In fact, one of my medals is a NATO medal for being there, just for being there. Not that I did anything too spectacular there. So that's kind of the state of play that's going on there. The two main concerns that I'm kind of looking at in the world at the moment, again, watching this China sort of thing, still keeping this eye on these other periphery countries, like what's going on in Iran, what are they starting to do, what's happening in the Middle East, still keep an eye on there, because these things can get very, very overshadowed when we're focused on what's happening in Ukraine. And the news cycle, as I'm looking at it at the moment on this other screen, is just totally swamped in Ukraine. My feeds are totally swamped in Ukraine. Oh no, wait, there's one story on the fact that Brisbane is underwater right now. So one of my friends lives up in Brisbane, sent me some videos yesterday of horrific flooding that's happening up there. So if you are in that northern part of New South Wales or Brisbane, southeast Queensland, you're obviously copping a lot of rain. Sydney copped a lot of rain. I mean, we copped a lot of rain here, and we've got flooded areas, flooded rivers here, but nothing to the magnitude of what's happening up there. So stay safe, try and stay dry. Try and have an exit plan if you can. But if not, hopefully you've stockpiled a bit of food and you can lock down your house, and your house is high and dry. If you're there, and I'm thinking about you if you're up there, because floods are not a great place to be. And again, I'll throw this stuff out. If you are anywhere around floods, please don't drive through floods. It's a bit of a bugbear of mine, but every flood event we have in my local area, you can almost guarantee that somebody's going to somebody with a vehicle that shouldn't be driving through a flood is driving through one. So don't do that. That's how people die. Last thing I want to talk about today, unless there's any questions that people want to throw in. Last thing is, I've been getting quite a few messages from people about maybe not feeling so prepared. I get that, like, there's a lot of fear getting poured into us through the media at the moment. My take on it is, like, fear, when it comes to fear is okay to have, but you need to know how to handle that. Fear is a very essential human emotion, and it drives the survival instinct, in that if we didn't have fear, we'd probably die. We'd probably, like, walk out in front of traffic without checking. We'd do all kinds of crazy things. So fear is essential for the human animal to survive. We just need to know how to utilize it right, and how to appropriately then deal with what that fear is about. So we need to look at these sort of things and go, okay, what can I deal with? What's happening out there? So I've been getting a lot of messages. A lot of people send me things like, hey, I feel unprepared. Hey, I'm not ready. Is it too late? It's never too late to start preparing. And I wrote a message to someone about this, that, like, all we need to do is keep taking those small steps, keep moving forward, try and remain as calm as possible and as clear-headed, because acting from that place of utter fear is a pretty shitty place to act from. You're going to make really bad decisions, generally speaking, if you're acting from there. So just try and take a deep breath whenever you're thinking about this. Don't empty your bank account today and go and, like, buy every gun or bullet or crazy prepper idea that you had, unless you're really going to go for it. Then if that's your deal, go. You knock yourself out. But just really try and focus on continuing your preps, what you've been doing. Maybe step it up a little bit more now. We still have a little bit of time. We still have the resources. Prices aren't skyrocketing. Shortages aren't here yet. But I am foreseeing that we will hit a bit of a period of that in the not too distant future. So just start to maybe step it up a little bit. If the example I usually give is about cans. So, if you buy 2 cans, maybe buy 3 this time, or next time you go shopping, and focus on community as well. Again, like I said at the start of this, I went up and was helping some friends out, butcher a couple of goats. And this is what it's about, is actually making these connections, helping people out. The people that I was helping out hadn't done this before, so, like, trying to teach them. And I as I said, I recorded it, so I'll try and get a video up in the next week or so I can put this information out so you can see this sort of stuff, which is essentially what I'm trying to do. This is the whole point of this whole thing that I'm doing, is just trying to get this information out there so we can all try and make ourselves more prepared and more safe in the world. But yeah, connect in with your community, spend time with family, start to talk about these sort of things, not in the sky is falling kind of way, but in a way of, like, hey, how can we make ourselves best prepared for what's going to happen in the future? Check out, things like one of the Telegram channels that I help run is Mutual Assistance Group Australia. That's MAG Australia. So jump on there if you are an Aussie, and maybe throw a comment up if you want to start talking with people and connecting with people in your area. And also, I'm going to be doing another live tonight with that Insta chick, talking specifically about community and community building. Well, maybe specifically about it. That'll definitely be in there. So we'll be doing that, having a chat about that, chatting about stuff prepping. If any questions come up today, people send me in, I'll try and answer them during that live as well. But yeah, we'll be talking about that, talking about community, and I will be definitely drinking some whiskey as well. So join us for that 8 p.m. tonight. Jump on there and check that out. But apart from that, that's pretty much it. I'll wrap it up there. Still got information coming in. Again, don't feel like you have to keep abreast of everything that's happening. If you are getting stressed out, cut it away. That's essentially what I was doing yesterday. I looked at a couple of sources during the day, but for the main part, I didn't look at any new sources. Throughout the day, I went out and I hung out with friends. I drank some whiskey and had a beer. We smoked one of the shoulders of the goat. It was absolutely delicious. It was amazing. So had some food, helped out some friends, butchered a goat or two. Great times. And this is the sort of stuff that we should be focusing on really. We get, sitting there staring at our TV screens or our phone screens or whatever it is, looking at what's happening in the Ukraine isn't actually going to help us. We need to do that, take on that information, go, okay, now what do I need to do in my life to enrich my life and make it better today, and if things get worse into the future. So apart from that, stay safe. If you are anywhere where a lot of rain is pouring out of the sky right now, try and stay dry. And I will jump back onto another live later tonight at 8 p.m. I hope to see you guys then. But until then, Semper Paratus.